Have from the Independent Women's Forum Board of Directors, Nan Hayworth, Wall Street Journal, aforementioned publication, the great James Friedman, and our own Charlie Gasparino is here as well. You want to take that, James, as a start, as a wider discussion on all of this? But we thought, I saw him tweet that, and I said, what the heck good is that going to do if you think the trade deficit is so bad, $1 billion? But should that be a goal, $100 billion? Does that make more sense?
I think we need to get away from viewing a deficit as a problem in itself. We've had a good economy lots of times with a trade deficit. And whether it's 1 or 100 billion, are you telling American consumers these are products you can no longer buy in order to bring this into the alignment that he wants? But I think that tweet is kind of emblematic of what's going on in the markets, where they sold off big time last week when he originally announced this. I think since then, people are thinking maybe the tweets and the initial comments are not exactly where we end up in terms of policy. We've gone from talking about trade war to being very flexible today from the president. So I think the hope is he really doesn't do as bad a job as he initially.
Can you pick up on that, Nan, the flexibility part before we bring Charlie in? Do you hear a flexible president today? Is that what you're hearing?
He's a flexible, pragmatic president. He's a businessman and he's a negotiator. And what his tweets do are give us directionally expressions of where he, what he's thinking about. Right. But are they final policy? No. And I would say he needs more letters.
Now we're going to.
He probably cut out the 100 because it was like, 280.
I don't know. We have exemptions for everybody, Charlie. Maybe at the end of this, I guess Canada, Mexico. You mentioned Australia. Nothing on Italy, by the way.
Oh, thank you. The markets aren't that worried. They sold off pretty viciously initially on Gary Cohn leaving. Then they came back. They were down just marginally. Listen, I don't think this is good, and it's kind of fun watching James here because. Conservatives,
fun.
Here's why. Because
the Wall Street Journal editorial pitch coming.
Here's why. Because conservatives like James have been basically putting aside Trump's manic economic idiocy on trade for a long time.
No.
And now yes, you have, and endorsing him, and by the way, and endorsing him and his economic policies without worrying about this sort of, this insane thing that's hovering on the side.
Well, hold on,
and now he's starting to, and now let me just, let me make my point. And now Trump is starting to show his protectionist colors, and they're like, oh God, what is this going to do to the rest of the economy?
Right.
Now, it could be the art of the deal here. I don't care. Like, listen, Trump's statements on protectionism and his policies as he campaigned, I don't care. That's economic idiocy. It may be just art of the deal, and he's looking to negotiate.
But there is I was going to say there's this wider discussion.
But his words, and by the way, doesn't it scare you a little bit that some guy can have a tweet where he's off by 99?
That's why I brought it up. But I want to bring up. I have to go to James on this because he's attacking. But this is what I'll say about what Charlie just said. We've had a lot of interviews with like Wall Street types, as you might say, investors this week, and that is the one thing you do notice is that they look at it and say, well, this won't really happen, or this, and they focus on other things. They focus on taxes. They focus on regulations being cut. But, to Charlie's point, whether it's attacking the Wall Street Journal editorial page or not.
I'm not attacking you. But
he has been consistent on this trade issue. It's always been there, so.
Right. So we have consistently attacked him on the bad ideas he's rolled out on trade and immigration. I think the parts of his agenda that he's gotten done in terms of cutting regulation, cutting taxes, are huge for the U.S. economy. And I think one of the reasons Charlie doesn't understand is because he's looking.
I understand. I've said
you're looking at a few individual taxpayers in New York who maybe don't get the best deal.
We're talking about protectionism.
What you have to understand is
how about protectionism,
is how good this deal is for businesses, both large and small. I think there was also some confusion there where some people in the press didn't realize initially how big a cut this is for not just large corporations, but also pass-through entities.
No, but everybody gets that. But now he's going. But now he's. But everybody gets that, James. But I think what you guys are missing is now Trump is raising taxes. These tariffs, yes, the tax increase.
I'm going to offer a response, a phrase to you. There's method in the president's quote-unquote madness.
Really?
And that is, yes, because he has, as James says, what he has accomplished thus far, and I know you've acknowledged it as well, in terms of deregulation, in terms of tax cuts, things that no president has done for a couple of decades, basically.
Okay,
just about.
But people hold on, let her finish. That sets us up.
That empowers our economy. It empowers empowers our consumers and our workers, and it also increases our leverage around the world. When we have a stronger American economy, then when he talks about putting America first, what he's doing is presenting a position to the world.
But you think it's a better time to do this?
I do, Connell.
The timing is. That's your point.
It's
a horrible time.
No,
some people say it's never a good time.
Right.
Think about what's going on here.
But Charles, he's not.
Can I just make this point? Think about why this is a bad time to do it. Yeah. You have potential for inflation, thus higher interest rates. You have the Fed unwinding its balance sheet, thus higher interest rates. Now, on top of that, you got a potential trade war which could cause inflation.
Well, James,
that is the dumbest thing in the world to do right now.
I agree. We don't need a trade war, and tariffs have proven throughout their history to be a mechanism that is a very dangerous double-edged sword at best.
All right, let me just go around the room here.
This is a negotiating position.
Well, that's the debate now. So I'll start with you, James. We'll come back. Is how serious do you guys think the president is? I've been saying all week that this is his. This is one position. It's definitely of his positions that he's taken. This is the one he's been the most consistent on, or the most serious about. So that would lend the argument, or lend credence to the argument, that he is very serious about this, and we might be heading down a path that ends up in a quote-unquote trade war. How serious do you think
it is? Serious. You're right. This is one position he's actually held for a very long time.
So you're worried.
I am worried, and I think you would like to see more people in the White House with a free trade perspective. There are some. I think they're pushing back, but it's really.
And he is moderating a bit, it sounds like.
Right. I think it's really up to investors. They sent him a big signal telling him this was a big mistake last week. They've got to stay on him. If he turns out not to be the flexible guy and turns out to be the trade warrior.
It's like, sell your stocks to send the president a message.
This is the message that I think he understands. And there are worse things for a president to judge his performance on. It's dangerous for him politically because markets can go up and down, but he cares about it a lot.
Right.
Investors should send him the message.
How serious is he?
I think the president is entirely serious about putting Americans to work, about reviving our manufacturing. He's made great strides toward that by doing the things
the question
he's already
is, even
done.
if other countries retaliate, that's what a trade war is.
I think the president is a man who is perfectly capable of evaluating the evidence and evaluating good arguments. We're already hearing him moderate his position, and he will continue to respond to the realities on the ground. The last thing he wants to do is create a massive new tax on the American people.
The realities on the ground would argue against all this.
He is fulfilling his pledge that he made to represent American workers forcefully.
But he's hurting American workers.
That's a good point. That's an interesting point.
There's no logic.
Only American workers, but is he hurting his own supporters?
Here's what I would say. I don't care how many.
Interesting after that Tuesday special election in Pennsylvania, how he evolves on this.
There is no economic logic that anybody Republican can twist and turn themselves to present this in a good light. Maybe he backs off it unless he wants to get a. Unless you're saying that he's.
That's what I'm saying, Charles.
So he's going to get a better. But it's a stupid policy. You do admit, don't you?
What he's telling China is, and look, we've already seen the Chinese say that they are willing to talk with us about how we can reduce this deficit. We need to get serious with the Chinese about a lot of ways in which we can be better partners for each other.
Suppose they dump our treasury bonds.
Well, Charles, I agree with you. One way we have rendered ourselves vulnerable is because they hold so much of our debt. And one thing the president has done for us is reduce that vulnerability because he's strengthened our economy.
We're about 10 minutes.
We're going to grow our way.
We're about 10 minutes over. Well, anyway, good discussion. We'll keep it going. We'll probably have a chance to do it again tomorrow.